My husband, Steve, and I came to his dad's cabin for the summer. The village is stunning. Not a single dilapidated house. Charles' house is also beautiful and has been renovated. Steve devoted most of his time to cleaning up the yard. Although I realized he was here to help his father with chores, I felt like I had become invisible to him. He would head out to the yard early in the morning, return by lunchtime, continue his work, and only then leave for the night. His father, on the other hand, spent more time with me. Charles was widowed when Steve was only 5 years old and never remarried. However, I couldn't help but notice that this man, now about 45, still possessed a certain charm. There were rumors in the village as to why such a fine man had not taken another spouse. One day, Steve needed to go into town to get parts for his lawnmower. Charles and I were left alone in the house. I cleaned the house first, and then went out into the yard to lie in the hammock we had hung up that summer. After a while, Steve's father came outside too and sat at the table on the veranda. I fanned myself with a thin book of detectives that I had undertaken to read. At one point, I looked up at him and noticed that he was looking at me. As if coming to his senses, he rose from the wicker chair. "Mary, it's cooler in the house," he shouted to me. "Coming." He waited until I reached the house and opened the door for me. I noticed him looking at my bare shoulders in my summer dress. It flattered me a little, and I smiled when Charles realized I had noticed it. The room actually started to breathe easier, and I settled down on the couch. Charles walked in with glasses of lemonade. I sipped some and set the glass on the table, accidentally touching Charles's thigh. But he suddenly moved closer, averting his gaze. He was like Steve on our first night together, just as awkward and demure until he got to the point. Charles is the man, and I'm the girl whose own husband had forgotten she existed. "Charles," I took the glass from him and set it back down to mine. The man turned around sharply when I placed my palm on his leg. I thought he was going to push my hand away, but he leaned over and kissed me gently, looking into my eyes. Steve squeezed his eyes tightly shut, giving off a familiar longing that reminded me of our romantic moments together. Moving closer, I kissed him and gently placed my hand on the back of his neck. He responded eagerly, and I found myself savoring the moment as much as Steve did. In my husband's absence, his father had livened up my routine.